plate.
Is he in your yard, sir?
Yeah, God, he's big.
Okay, what's he doing in your yard?
He's looking at me.
Oh, and the guy is on foot.
I don't know what. It's a big, real big person.
What was that, sir?
That's not human! That's not human!
Ich hab verrichtet, so dass ich in dem Wald bin. Nicht abgelot wird, so lang wie es reagiert. Und die Zeit zurück. Nie in alle Ewigkeit.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Phantom Frequency podcast. I'm your host, Steven, and thank you for tuning in. Before we begin, if you have a personal encounter, experience, or story you'd like to share, you can contact us by email at thephantomfrequencypodcast@gmail.com. You can also contact us through Instagram at the Phantom Frequency Podcast and Facebook at the Phantom Frequency. I also want to give a huge thank you to everyone supporting the show. Every listen, follow, comment, rating, and share truly helps keep the frequency alive. A lot of time, research, and effort goes into every episode, and your support genuinely means the world. Now, today we have a very special guest joining me. I have Colin, who is the co-host of the Full of Paranormal B.S. podcast. Colin, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you? That was awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
That was all on one breath, everyone. Just so you guys know, like that was
Yeah, no edits
absolutely
at
amazing.
all, I promise. So, Full of Paranormal B.S. That's an interesting name for a podcast, I have to admit.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was. It took many hours, many thoughts and ideas because I think as a title, that's the first thing people see, right? Like they don't kind of like come across a podcast and be like, oh, what's it about? They always look at your title first. And my co-host Jess and I were on the phone and chit-chatting about it. And I was like, we want to use the word paranormal because that's obviously what catches everyone's eyes, all of that. And I was like, Jess, I'm a believer and you're a skeptic. And I was like, and then BS just kind of came and I was like, wait, what about this? And at first she was like, no, I don't like that. That's silly. People are going to hate us. And then after like a couple of days, it just kind of like, it just stuck. And then after that, it was like, we could envision it. And then we realized, wait, we want people to think we're just bullshitting, but we're not. It's believer and skeptic. And that's just kind of what it came out to. And we get compliments on it all the time.
Yeah. No, when I first seen it, I was like, is that really what it's called? And then as I listened to it, I'm like, okay, you're right. There's a lot of BS between the conversations, even in the paranormal community. There's lots of BS that you have to sift through to get to the real stories.
Mm-hmm.
And that seems like what you guys focus on, which I love.
Yes. Yeah. We're very, because obviously these are like famous locations that we talk about. And yeah, so they're like famous locations that we talk about. And we wanted to make sure that people really understand the history of the location and that we are getting factual representation for it. That was very important to us.
Awesome. What are some of the topics you've covered so far, like notable ones?
Oh, so we did the Amityville house. We've done the Cecil Hotel, the Queen Mary, and Lizzie Borden. And we also have a new episode releasing on June 1st. And we don't tell anyone what our new episodes are going to be. If you follow our social medias, which is Full of Paranormal BS on across all platforms, we kind of do this like mystery thing. So 7 days prior to release, every day we'll release one distorted photo with a caption of what the new episode is going to be. And it's up to you to figure out what it is.
Oh, I love that. That's so cool. That's really good to engage people, you know what I mean? Get
Yeah,
people
we
talking.
want people to kind of keep it guessing. We that's kind of because Jess was involved. It was all Jess's idea as far as like the social media aspect was concerned. In that, she kind of started a band a couple years ago with her father called QED, and she was kind of marketing a little bit of their social media, and she was like, what can I do to engage people? And she was kind of like making these really cool videos to where people were like, can you guess the song? Or because I believe they did a lot of covers, they did a lot of original stuff. So that's kind of where she started. And then she said, I really want to do that for this. I don't want people to know in advance what we're going to talk about, because then people get an idea, right? They sit there and go, well, you're going to talk about the Lizzie Borden house. Well, I know all about it. And, we don't want to give people this, we don't want people coming into it with their own perspective. We want them to listen to us fresh and go, oh, okay, cool. This is what it is. I didn't know that about that place.
Yeah. And we do the same exact thing here, which I love. I don't like to post about upcoming episodes, tell people what they're about, because then people go, oh, what's that? And then they Google it, and then they get the cliff notes of everything I'm going to be talking about. And
Yeah.
what I find fun about talking about these topics is the mystery about it, is having
Yes.
an audience that's hearing it for the first time. Funny enough, most of the stories we've covered so far with me and my co-host, I don't even tell him if I pick the topic and I do the research and writing for it. He comes into the episode blind, so he is pretty much a member of the audience hearing this for the first time, and people get to hear his kind of raw reactions to it as they would hear it.
And that's also, I feel like that's actually really important, especially sometimes coming into something blind. It's kind of like going into, a haunted house. There are people who kind of want to know the history of the location. So if there is an experience, they can go, oh, okay, well, this experience happened and this is part of the history. So now this experience makes sense. But then there's those people who are like, no, I want to go into it completely blind. So that way, if I have an experience, I can't equate it to anything else. And then you can tell me, hey, that this happened on this floor, and you had an experience, you knew nothing about it. So there are two types of people. I'm the first one. I like to research the location. I like to know what other experiences people have had in said location, and try to figure out, because I think history is so important. And as we know, history clearly repeats itself.
Always.
Yeah.
We'll never escape that.
Whether it's through like a ghostly presence that's kind of trapped in time and doing something like that, or it's just you not learning a simple lesson, and it's just going to keep happening until you actually learn it. So I think going into a location not blind is important, but a lot of people disagree with that.
Yeah, no, I agree, because if you go into a place, like you said, let's say this place is known for a certain apparition. Everyone sees, the little girl, or everyone sees the guy in the top hat or whatever. Then I feel like it's good to know a little bit about a location you're investigating. But if you know too much, then it's almost like your brain is looking for that. It's looking for.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to know where to stop. Like when it comes to what you're researching or what location, you need to know when to stop with your information and just go with the bare basics. But sometimes you can't. I mean, there's been plenty of locations that I'm obsessed with, that I get the chance to go to, and I just kind of, eat up all the knowledge that I could find.
Yeah. I feel like it'd be hard to avoid that. Honestly, I end up doing the same thing myself.
Oh, I'm a glutton. I'm a glutton for knowledge.
Yeah.
I have to know everything.
Honestly, that's been my favorite part of doing this so far, is everything I've learned.
Yeah.
Doing such deep dives on topics and encounters through history. Like we were talking about before, you get to that underlayer, not the layer that everyone spews the same, back and forth. This person said this person said that. But when you really get to the origins of experiences and stuff, you learn a lot more than what people always talk about when they bring up these subjects.
Oh yeah, I will say like there are things that I'm still learning today, especially doing full of Paranormal BS. Like I know when we did the Queen Mary, anyone who knows, well, I feel it's not true, but my dad was a big war guy, so I learned a lot of what I know about history from my father when it comes to like the world wars and all that. But like Queen Mary, if it wasn't for the Queen Mary, we would not have survived World War II. And it's such an important piece of history that I hope people digest and like people know and kind of keep that alive. And I learned so many things that I did not know while doing an episode on the Queen Mary and doing all of the research that I had to do, and realizing what an important piece of history that it actually was. Like it's not, a lot of people nowadays when they think about the Queen Mary, I know what I thought about. Like I thought about the Unsolved Mysteries episode with Robert Stack and he's in the pool and all of that. I like I said, I was unaware of how important it was. And it once you get to know that kind of history, in my opinion, I feel that it makes what you're talking about so much better because there's a passion behind it. We're not just, you know, talking about this stuff over and over and over again because it's something that we want to do or that it's a paycheck. It's like, no, we love this. It's a passion, it's a craft. And that's
100%.
where I
I
feel,
could not
you
agree
know,
more. Could
yeah.
not agree more.
And some people kind of fail in that aspect too. I think that I have a really good friend of mine, Mary Jo Chudley from Penn Paranormal. Love her to pieces. I've known her for a couple of years. I've worked with her. She's an amazing person, and she's kind of gotten her slice of fame. Like she had an episode of a haunting about the dolls, or it was called Demon Dolls, or Devil Dolls, one of the two. And she's been on like Haunted Hospital and all this kind of stuff, and she sits there and talks about how like there are two types of people in the paranormal community. There are the people who watch these ghost hunter shows and they say, I'm going to be famous. I am going to do this. And then there are the people who just want to put their story out there, who have had an experience, who work in the paranormal community, and if they happen to go somewhere with it or they get recognized for it, that's great, but that's not the purpose.
Yeah.
And learning that from Mary Jo, because originally, starting out with Full of Paranormal BS is not how I started at all. Do you want to hear how I started?
Yeah, we can go
we'll
right
go with that.
into how did you first become interested in the
Gosh.
paranormal? What started this spark for you?
Well, what started my spark really was shows like Unsolved Mysteries and having these spooky happenings. I grew up in Florida and I was probably about 30 minutes away from St. Augustine. St. Augustine, Florida is the oldest city in the US. And I would go there with friends and family and look at all this Spanish style old architecture, and I would hear all these ghost stories and I would have what I deemed to be experiences. And I found it fascinating. I couldn't get enough of it because it's almost that thrill of riding a roller coaster without having to ride the roller coaster. Like you're scared, but you're also intrigued.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then it kind of ventured into me growing up, going to college, like being on my own and having some very kind of crazy, kooky experiences that I could not explain. Um, and then it kind of went into the idea of like urban exploring to where I was like going to locations that are presumably haunted and seeing if we can have an experience. And then I like I said, I was not hugely involved in any paranormal community when I was living in Florida. I went to college. I had some crazy experiences in college. I actually lived in an apartment that we dubbed the Amityville apartment.
Oh,
To
it's
where,
fitting.
yeah.
So was that in college? Was that the first
Yeah.
time you would personally have encounters with paranormal?
No, so I would say no because I've had like creepy or spooky experiences prior to that, but I would say that this one in college was the one that cemented things for me. It was stuff that there was no way I could absolutely explain what was going on because I feel that everyone has what I call like a psychic bone in their body. We are all an instrument, and if you know how to do it, you can kind of tune in. And I've had feelings, as I was younger and like growing up, and I intuitively just feel that I'm not alone, but you can't always trust that, right? It, it doesn't always, because people might sit there and say, oh, well, you're just crazy or you're imagining this. And then you kind of start convincing yourself that, yeah, no, maybe you are. So you can explain it away. But I was in college and me and one of my good friends, her name is Katie. We were lived together in a small 1-bedroom apartment. We had 2 beds and we were both acting majors at a school. And it was a fun little apartment. And I remember what first started it was that we noticed our kitchen light would start flickering. Not that big of a deal, right? We're like, okay, it's kind of a flickering light. Haha, probably an electrical issue. And then probably about a month or so after that, we noticed in our dining room area, we were college students. So we just literally had a bare bulb lamp because that was deco design for college students. And
Yeah.
we noticed that the flicker that started in the kitchen was now moved to our bare bulb lamp. And we just we made jokes. We're like, ooh, maybe it's a ghost, all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. And we giggled and we
Will's
laughed about
trying
it.
to contact you guys.
Yeah, yeah. And,
Stranger Things.
yeah. And, I just, we joked and laughed, like I said. And then we were like, okay, let's experiment. And we started asking yes or no questions, and it would flicker once for yes and twice for no. And we're like, okay, this is getting kind of weird. And then that flicker moved to our living room, eventually moved to our bathroom, and then eventually moved to the bedroom area. And now we just had we just had like a flickering lights all through our apartment on a constant basis.
So when it
It
would
was like,
move, would it, like, let's say it moves from the dining room to the bathroom, or would it continue in the other spot as well, or would it only flicker like a single light in a certain area?
it would spread. So I guess spread is a better term. So it would always, the kitchen light always flickered, and then when it was the dining room, it was the kitchen and dining room.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
Yeah,
That's
so
crazy.
it spread slowly. I mean, all of a sudden we had a rave, happening in our apartment all the time. We replaced light bulbs, and it was just constant flicker. And then it started our oven in the kitchen, which the kitchen itself was it was like a narrow hallway because it was just a college apartment. It was like this little narrow hallway, and we would find the oven on at 350 degrees all the time. And it was like you
Oh,
actually
this
have
is so
to
weird that
now.
you're saying this, not to
Yeah,
cut you off, but
yeah,
both of
yeah.
my monitors, this has never happened before. As you're telling the story, both of my monitors just shut off. Everything went black. I was like, what just happened? That
Because the
is
Amityville
crazy.
apartment ghosts are coming back.
Yeah, you gave them to me now. Sorry.
No,
Anyways,
you're
yeah.
okay. But so like, and it was one of those ovens where you have to press in and then turn. So it was like I at that time in college, I was a lot larger. I had very wide childbearing hips, and we would always joke that maybe it was me, pressing in this oven, and but it was like we would go to bed and find it on the next morning. I'm not
That's
baking cookies in
crazy.
my sleep at 2 o'clock in the morning. And we would find we would sometimes like go into our living room and it's freezing. And that's because our AC window unit is turned on full blast. We would find our front door unlocked and locked. Now I was living in Florida, especially being in college. I grew up locking doors, right? I didn't grow up in the country. I grew up in a city, and I lock my doors at night. So I know that I would religiously lock that front door before I go to bed. And to find it unlocked in the morning freaked me out.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. Because
So,
skeptic could
oh,
say, okay, all the electrical stuff, okay, wiring or whatever, but when it starts getting not electrical and actually like physical, with the doors unlocking
mhm.
and the oven going on, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah. And look, at the time, we just kind of giggled everything away. And our friends would come over and they would hear our stories and they would like ask yes or no questions to the light bulb, and we would all giggle, like like girls at a sleepover. We were like, oh, who's Bobby going to marry? is Bobby going to marry Sheila? And the light bulb would flicker, once or twice, and we would all giggle. And it was fun. It was almost, in a sense, romanticizing our little like apartment ghost. And then things took a dire turn. It got very scary. And this is where, for me, I can't rationally explain any of it. So what ended up happening was that I had a trip that I had to go to. And so Katie was at the apartment by herself. I was gone for 2 days. I come back on my second day. My friend drops me off and I go into my apartment. My apartment is a mess at this point. It is just everything is thrown around. Everything. It is ramshacked. And I was like, what in the world happened? Like, by all means, none of us were clean freaks in college, but this was beyond whatever I could imagine a messy place being. I mean, like I said, things were absolutely everywhere. And I could not find Katie. I had no idea where she was. Very unlike her. I knew that she did not want to stay in the apartment by herself overnight. So prior to my leaving, she stayed at a friend's apartment and they were up all night studying, from my understanding. And so I'm looking around. I tried calling Katie's cell phone. She's not picking up. And that's because the cell phone is actually in the apartment. I said, okay, well, her cell phone is here. That's weird. And so, like, weird issue number one was that her phone had a voicemail on it. So I called the voicemail thinking maybe it's just someone knows where Katie is. And it is just a voicemail of white noise. It just sounded like someone just hung the phone out a car window. And it went on for like 3 minutes. And I was like, that's really weird. Like, who would do that? That's, maybe it was a butt dial, right? Not really thinking about it. So I said, okay, well, who was this voicemail from? And I get the number, and the number was our apartment house phone. We had a wall phone in the apartment just in case for emergencies. And yeah. And so I went, okay, well, maybe Katie called it from the house phone, couldn't find her cell phone, right? That makes sense. So then I looked at the timestamp, and the timestamp was at like 2:00 in the morning. And I spoke to the friend that she stayed the night at. And that friend was like, no, we sat here and studied all night long. We had a test to cram for, and her phone never rang. So our apartment called Katie's cell phone and left a voicemail of 3 minutes of white noise.
That
God. Couldn't explain that. And then Katie disappeared for over 24 hours. Unfortunately, we did find out what happened. Mental health happened, unfortunately. Katie kind of had a mental health breakdown. Some issues arose. She actually ended up getting arrested. She had T-boned a lady going to Walmart, and she was just not in the right frame of mind. And she got out of the car, said sorry, and then drove to Walmart after hitting a lady's car. And so they thought she was drunk.
Yeah.
So they ended up putting her in a tank for 24 hours. She showed up the next day. And she was clearly just not in the right state of mind. And so I call her parents, who I was very good friends with, and I was like, hey guys, look, something is not right. I don't know what it is, but can you come and get Katie? Something needs to happen. Now, to this day, a lot of our friends speculate that maybe Katie was possessed. I don't necessarily believe that. I do think that it was kind of a mental health issue, unfortunately. Anyone listening, mental health is real, right? It can affect us all differently. And unfortunately, it took its toll on Katie. And I was very upset. I wasn't really sure what was going on with my best friend at the time. And that evening, I was at work. Her parents called me to say, hey, we got Katie home. She started acting very erratically. She became violent, and we had to take her to a hospital just to be watched over. I said, okay. So I went home that night, and this is where, aside from the phone issue, where things took a much dire turn. I remember that evening, I was in the bedroom. I had the door closed, and I was thinking to myself, do I want to sleep with the light on? Because I was creeped out, right? Things have been happening in the apartment. Things were just kind of creepy, in my own mindset. I wasn't sure what was happening with my friends. So I just was not in a good place of mind. And I did have some friends reach out and say, hey, if you want to stay the night over here, that's A-okay. And so I'm standing there in the bedroom. The door is closed. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go to sleep with the light on, whatever. And I hear a tap, tap, tap on the bedroom door. And I hear Katie say, Colin, it's me. Let me in.
Oh.
And I knew it wasn't her. I could not move. I was frozen. There was no way Katie was behind that door at all.
Dude.
And I did not know what to do. Because I just, how do you, there's no explanation for this.
Yeah, that's you're dealing with a mimic.
Yeah. And like, at that time, I had no idea what a mimic is. I had no clue. And I was completely 100% terrified because I didn't want to open that door, right? Like, I didn't know what was going to be behind it. So I called a friend. He was sleeping. He didn't pick up. So I called my other friend who lived in the same apartment complex. She lived a couple of apartments over, and who actually happened to be Jess, my co-host.
Oh, okay.
So
and she's still a skeptic after this?
Yes. She is. So like Jess picked up, she was like, come on over, it's fine. I was tempted to like jump out my bedroom window actually, because it's all first floor. So I was just like, but I said, you know what? Man up. So I gathered my blankets and my pillow. I opened the door and I have my head down. I refuse to look up. And my living room apartment is freezing. I could see my breath. And this is Florida in like October. So I can see my breath. The AC is not on. And I open the door, I walk out, I lock it, and I'm walking over to Jess's apartment. And as I'm walking, I'm hearing like skittering and rattling. And I thought to myself, it's probably just leaves blowing across the sidewalk. Like I said, it's October. There's dead leaves all over the place and it's a little windy. So I didn't think too much about it. And as I'm walking, I noticed that this shaking, skittering sound is getting louder. And everyone's apartment was very cookie cutter. So you had like a stoop, and then to the left of the front door was like some sort of like, what in Florida we call them the cat pee bushes, because when they get wet, they smell like cat pee. I don't know what the, yeah.
I gotta get me one of them. Yeah,
they're cheap. Yeah, all my fur. Yeah, and I think that's why people put them outside in their apartments, because they were just like cheap. They were cheap flowers to get.
Yeah,
or bushes. Excuse me, not flowers, but bushes. I don't know what their scientific official term is, but they were just cat pee bushes. Anyone who lives in the South area will know exactly what I'm talking about. And I stop and I turn, and as I'm walking by every single apartment door that I walk by, the bush next to the door starts shaking violently. And I start to go into a small jog, and it keeps up with me. Like every bush just starts shaking. And I get to Jess's, I knock on the door, she opens, her bush starts to shake, and she goes, "What's that?" And I just push her inside and close the door and said, "Nothing. Don't worry about it."
Oh my gosh.
And unfortunately, Katie's health did not get better. She ended up having to leave the school. And so I moved into a smaller apartment with a friend of mine. And what really made the experience, I guess in a sense, almost funny, was that, I had a friend. I was moving in with my friend Danny, and we had our friend Skip helping us move everything out. And it was the same apartment complex, just a couple apartments over. And Danny and I were moving boxes, and Skip was a skeptic. Skip did not believe anything we had to say. He thought it was the funniest thing in the entire world because it was all fake for him. And Danny and I walked back over to the apartment, and Skip is out on the stoop shaking. And we were like, "Skip, what's wrong? What happened?" And he had said that while we were gone, he had walked into the kitchen, grabbed a box, moved it outside to the stoop, went back inside, and the oven was on to 350 degrees.
Oh my God, again?
Yeah. And he freaked out because he knew he didn't touch it. He was the only one in the kitchen. He knew he did not touch it with 100% certainty. And he walked outside and he was like, I believe you. Everything you've said about this place is 100% true. And I no longer want to be in here. And after that experience at that apartment, I think that's when I realized that the paranormal can not only is real, but can be scary. There are things out there that we don't have an explanation for that can whether it lives on fear, whether it lives on that adrenaline that we are producing ourselves because it's scaring us, especially when we're vulnerable. I think that was, for me, that was the moment that I felt, I guess, betrayed is more of the correct term, because I don't know, like, I guess growing up involved in the paranormal and kind of believing, having, kind of these weird experiences that I could explain, like in St. Augustine and stuff like that. And like watching these shows as a kid, you kind of felt like you were part of the paranormal. Like there was nothing that could ever really go wrong for you. And when I was at a very low moment and very vulnerable, this entity took advantage of that. And I felt betrayed. I felt like there are dark things in this world that can easily take advantage of you and do some harmful stuff, especially when you're vulnerable. And that was kind of a turning point for me when it came to the paranormal. I feel that was really a moment that my eyes opened wider to see this bigger spectrum of what this world can offer.
Yeah, I think that's probably a huge misunderstanding for people who think that ghosts. It's always Casper. And
Oh yeah, I did 100%.
Yeah, people don't understand what these things are and how they operate, and how some of them can have very malicious intent, and like you said, basically feed off of your negativity, your fear. And the more it scares you, the more powerful you make it, and they can ruin lives. Like they can 100% ruin lives. They can ruin relationships. They can ruin people.
Oh yeah, and I listened to these stories of people who were like, "Oh, well, this and this and this happened, and this is where I'm at," and I'm like, I get it. I get it, because I think that, there's easily a moment in any one person's life that if something takes, kind of takes that moment from you in a sense, it could. I hate to use. I mean, I guess what you said. I mean, it can destroy you in a sense, right? Like it can just kind of take everything away from you, especially when you're at your lowest moments. And after that, I still stayed like involved in like the paranormal. I had another good friend of mine who worked at like a haunted theater, and he wanted me to like. Now, granted, once again, I'm in college. I have like no equipment. I have no cameras. I just have like my body as an instrument, and I thought that was good enough. I was very naive. Can't even afford a cat ball, right? Can't even go to your local store and just get a little cat ball. But
who'd have thought we'd be using these now in investigation?
I know. Yeah, laser pointers. Basically, we're assuming ghosts are cats is what we're doing.
100%. Every paranormal piece of equipment that we use now was never meant for that purpose.
No, not at all. And then I once again, like I even started. So I had moved up to. I currently, I don't really care if people know where I live. So, but I live in Pennsylvania, and
okay,
I moved
not too
up
far
here.
from me. I'm in Rhode Island.
Oh, nice. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I moved up to Pennsylvania. Well, so Jess and I actually moved to New York together because we just had this great friendship that's lasted all these years. We moved to New York. And then my grandmother had gotten sick. Her health had declined. And my mom was like, would you mind moving to Pennsylvania, giving New York a break just to help out? And I said, you know what? Sure, that is not an issue. New York was not as easy as I had thought it would be. So I was ready to just kind of leave. And once again, I'm a city person. I'm not really a country person. And the country kind of grew on me. And there is in this town where I live, there is a old school 5-movie theater playhouse that I just fell in love with. It's called the Clifton 5. And even as a kid coming up here to visit family and visit grandparents from Florida, like we would always go to the Clifton to watch a movie because they're cheap, and it was just a good time. But the history of this place was really, really cool. And I remember that I became friends with the general manager. Her name is Ariel. And during COVID, she actually offered me a position at the theater. Because originally I was kind of getting into the world of like YouTube and paranormal, and I was really wanting to do like paranormal investigations and like record them and just kind of put my personality out there. And Ariel was gracious enough to give me a tour of the theater after it was closed, and she gave me some like interviews, and I was like, this is really cool. And what Stephen and I, what you and I talked about earlier was that I did no history of this place. I had only heard rumors, and all these rumors were, by the way, 100% wrong. I found out a lot later.
See, that's always the case. It's always the
100% wrong. But Ariel offered me a position during COVID, and I think I was working like maybe like the first week, and then we found out we had to shut down due to COVID. So Ariel and I were hanging out, and we would always end up kind of like going to the theater in the middle of the night to like hang out because it's closed, and we would kind of do our own paranormal investigations. And then her and I got we put our brains together and we said, what can we do to help raise money? Because we didn't want the theater to close. Unfortunately, in this town, it is the only theater within, I would say, like 45 minutes. 45 minutes away is an AMC, and AMC, as we know, hugely expensive. So we just did not want this place to close. And we said, why don't we give paranormal tours? And so we put our brains together. We went to the local library. We went to the local historian place there in town, and we deep dived and we did all this research to put together a tour for people to come to, and it skyrocketed. I mean, we had no idea that people were so interested in the history of this building. And then we put together Clifton Paranormal, and we became a team, and we were giving tours. We were having like famous psychics and famous ghost hunters. We had Mustafa Galilei who was there, and it was just people were coming from all over the place. It's where I met Mary Jo Chudley, and that's really where I got involved in the paranormal community, was working with Clifton and starting something there. We started getting invited to all these other places to go and investigate, and it was an absolutely amazing experience. And as we kind of got more, I don't want to say famous, because there wasn't like, it's not like we had Zach Baggins there.
Yeah.
Okay. And people are probably going to ask you why I just said his name like that. And that is because we were watching one of his ghost hunter, or is the ghost, what is it?
Ghost Adventures.
Ghost Adventures. I always say Ghost Hunters. We were watching an episode of Ghost Adventures on our newest topic that releases June 1st. And in the beginning, he was like, I'm Zach Baggins. And I was like, wait, did he just say Baggins? And we rewound it and played it about 80 times because he says Baggins, like a Wisconsin mom. And so, yeah, so now I can't unhear that if people are questioning. We've been saying it wrong this whole time, folks.
He's such a polarizing figure in the we don't have to get into it, but
I would love to. I would love to, actually, but we'll come back to it. But my point being is that we weren't like some giant famous location. I do feel that we were definitely getting to a spot of almost infamy, because having your own location for people to come to is absolutely amazing. And that kind of gets your names out there and all of that. And then, unfortunately it started becoming, what's what I'm looking for? It became a lot for us. And Ariel and I basically sat there and said, one of two things are going to break, either this business or our friendship. So I took the opportunity to leave. And I said, I don't want to lose my friendship. And it was not pretty in the very beginning. Ariel and I actually did not talk for almost a year.
Wow.
Because it ended very sourly, and luckily, we're on good terms now. I do support the Clifton. If there's anyone out there listening, if you're in the area of Huntington, Pennsylvania, go out, get a tour at the Clifton. The history is absolutely amazing. Ariel does an amazing job. She lets you investigate. It's a 5 movie theater, or a 5 house. What's what I'm looking for? Like a 5 screen movie theater. There we go. And I've had so many paranormal experiences there. And there's always kind of a constant activity that happens, not only as an employee, but also as a tour guide. So love them to pieces. Go out there, support them. But yeah, I was actually doing a Paracon. I was doing an Ed and Lorraine Warren Paracon, and I started Colin solo adventure. And I don't know. I kind of got to this place to where I wanted to put a whole bunch of stuff, because the thing about when you're with the team is that you have to filter all of your ideas into making sure that it's okay with everybody.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, my brain, when it comes to creativity, goes a mile a minute. Um, it just I have all these ideas that I spitball, and I run them, and I'm not the type of person to sit there and think and go, maybe this won't work. I have to try it out first, and then if it doesn't work, I'll accept defeat and move on. And so that was kind of my thing, is, and I when I talk to them about it, I always take responsibility. I had so many ideas for Clifton that I was just kind of running with, and no one could really keep up. And that's where I just had to remove myself, and I tried to put all these ideas into Colin's solo adventure. And then, that moment I think that we all face just as human beings, depression just kind of hit all at one time.
Oh yeah, I know that all too well, my friend.
Yeah. And
Oh
I
yeah.
just, I didn't know what to do. I did not know. I gone out. I actually have like 4 or 5 investigations that I have not finished editing, saved onto a hard drive, because I did not know how I wanted Colin's solo adventure to be. Um, I started focusing on other stuff, and I started watching, like, if anyone out there, Roz Hernandez. She is a paranormal investigator slash comedian slash podcast host out there on YouTube, and I loved the way that she did everything. So I was like, you know what, I think that maybe I can start working along those lines and kind of putting out this big personality. And luckily, like, working with Jess and our producer, her sister Bree, doing full of Paranormal BS, it's kind of led me full circle. I would not be where I am today if it wasn't for where I got with Clifton, right? I think anyone out there who can take away from anything is that just because that if you're a part of something now that is not working, that is okay. It's okay. You will always get back up, right? As long as you have that support, whether it's support from yourself or support from friends or support from family, you can always start something either on your own or start something new. It never has to end with one thing.
Yeah, I mean every failure is a learning experience, honestly.
Oh yeah.
No matter how much of your own time it wastes, whether creative projects, even relationships, you could be with someone for a really long time and it all collapses, and it feels easy to just go, all right, I'm over this, I'm over it.
Yeah,
But
it's
learning
never
from
the end of the
everything
world.
is, yeah, learning, taking what you've learned, taking the good, moving on from the bad, especially like you said, creatively. Now I know you told me before that you were a part of this ghost tour, but I didn't know that you actually helped put the whole thing together. That's pretty
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
And saving
I
this place, that's amazing.
I it became such a huge part of my life, with the Clifton, and that's the reason why I still tell people, go out there and support your local businesses, because we are saving history, right? Like, it's kind of like we wouldn't have the paranormal if it wasn't for the history that took place to give us the paranormal. Uh, so I like it when people go out there and support, and like I said, it taught me a lot. Like, it really prepared me for what I'm doing with Full of Paranormal BS. It really prepared me to, one, buckle down on your history, because, like I said, when I was with Clifton, like, there was this rumor that there was a fire and a man died with his dog. And I remember when I was giving tours my very first year with that information, people would be like, "Do you hear it?" Like, I remember back in Theater 4, which was like the most active theater itself, you would hear what sounded like a dog snoring, or people would feel something brush around their legs. And it's like, oh, well, clearly it's the dog. And then once Ariel and I actually buckled down on the history, there was no one died in the fire that took place in 1901 in that theater. No one. No one died. No man, no dog.
Yeah. So that just goes to show the human psyche, the psychological,
Yes.
the way
Yes.
people work, and like, again, going back to what we were talking about, the more you tell someone, the more someone believes something about a certain place, the more likely they are to encounter that by their own psychological illusions.
You start influencing what people are actually thinking and perceiving.
Exactly.
And that's, scary in a sense that we as human beings have kind of the ability to do that. And that is the reason why, like we were talking earlier, when it comes to full of paranormal BS, like Jess and I buckled down on that history. We really cross reference 100% of what we do, and like we all share a Discord. Which, if anyone's familiar with Discord, it's a great program to have, especially doing something like this long distance. Like, I live in Pennsylvania, Jess lives in Florida, and her sister lives in New Mexico.
Oh wow. I
So
thought you guys all okay, I didn't know that. Wow, that's amazing.
yeah,
All three
yeah,
of you guys
we
are all over the country. Wow.
all over the country, yeah. But with the power of, like, being able to do this kind of stuff remotely, we have a Discord channel that is for full of paranormal BS, and then within it we have all these sub channels. That's one's for research, one's for social media, one's for history, all this kind of stuff, and we put everything in there. And we help each other cross reference. In the beginning, Jess would gatekeep. That was one thing we laugh about all the time, is that she would find something like a paranormal story that someone was like, no, this is real, this happened. And she would gatekeep it, hoping that I would just find it on my own. But we don't do that anymore because we had realized it kind of, when you gatekeep from another person, sometimes it acts as a deterrent.
Yeah.
And we had realized that, okay, maybe that's not the right way to go. But we learn every episode that we do, because we're brand new. We have 4 episodes released. We're releasing our 5th here on the 1st. Jess is a very big believer in quality over quantity, which I love that. In the very beginning of starting this, I wanted to be like the other podcast that we talked about, scared to death, or you had said theories of the third kind. I wanted to release like every week or every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Because I felt like that was capturing an engaging audience. And then, I wanted to record episodes like in advance. So that way, if something happens, because, and Jess did say that it's okay for me to say this, but just, she has a chronic illness, as does her sister. So unfortunately, when you're living in the world of having a chronic illness, there are a lot of things that you just cannot force yourself to do because you don't have that energy, right?
Yeah.
So Jess was really, in the sense, she was like, I don't know if I can actually produce or help produce an episode a week, or things like that. So I said, okay, well, let's work with something else. And Jess came at me and she says, you know what? Like, I really want to focus on the quality of what we're producing, as opposed to, pumping episodes out that we just might not care about. And at first I fought it, because I was like, no, like, we have to grow our audience. We have to reign supreme in the world of podcasting. I will admit I got a little power hungry in the beginning.
Yeah. No, it's
um,
hey, you gotta put your foot, like, you gotta make a mark for yourself. It's not easy.
mhm,
You gotta push. You gotta push. I totally
yeah,
get the amount of work that goes into this. When
yeah,
I started, like, I knew it was a lot of work, but I couldn't have imagined how much work it's been to get an episode out every week like I've been doing.
word,
It
yeah,
it is I have no free time. I work
yeah,
a full-time job. I get out of
yep.
work and I'm on my computer either writing script for an episode, editing an episode that's done, scheduling interviews, scheduling episodes to record. Like, I have no time ever. It's just 2 days ago. I'm in a band.
Oh
We
wow,
have we have a huge show coming up next week,
awesome.
and yeah, we're going there to practice. We got this big show coming up, and there goes me taking my laptop there. So every time we're
Yep.
taking between like songs, between breaks, they're all bullshit, and I got my laptop open. I'm writing away. Like, it's a lot of work. I am every friend, family member, anyone I know, I've been hounding leave a comment, leave a review, listen to it,
Yep.
share it. Just everyone probably hates me right now, but it's what it takes. Consistency, and you really gotta push, because no one's gonna vouch for you. You have to do it yourself.
Correct. That was because, like I said in the beginning, like I felt like Pinky in the Brain, right? I just want to be like, tonight we take over the world, and that's what I wanted, and but like Bree just she has a newborn, he's a year old, so she has a husband and a baby. I have a full-time job, and I also have a part-time job that I do 2 or 3 days a week at, and my mother is up here visiting, and so it's like my grandmother passed last year, so it's like I have the house to myself, and you know I have dogs, and I have all this other stuff that I do kind of like in the community, and then like Jess, like she has all the stuff that she does, and it's like, wow, this is taking up much more time, which is once again why we just all sat together and said, you know what, I agree with this idea of doing one episode a month. And a lot of it also has to do with the research. Like we literally spend, I would say, almost 3 weeks researching our topic, because I'm an avid book reader. So I will go onto Amazon and I will order a whole bunch of books of experiences and all that kind of stuff. And then I will kind of go online and do some searching that way. For those who listen, to Full of Paranormal BS, as you know, like we have a questions that our producer Bree will ask us, and then Jess and I will kind of like debate those questions. And so we think of those questions in advance, so that way we can kind of narrow down our research, because obviously, like some of these locations that we have done, there's like we just did the Lizzie Borden house that has a huge, rich history that people could talk about for days.
Yeah. Can
And
I can I tell you something? I live about 20 minutes from the house.
I hate you.
No, hey, I could do you one better. Last year, my mom was a tour guide at the Lizzie Borden house.
Oh,
All
come
Yeah,
on.
all year long she did it. Yeah, and she said
It
that
full
place was no
circle.
joke. Yeah,
That is so funny. It goes full circle. I wish we would have like met sooner, so that way I could have hit you up for the Lizzie Borden portion,
yeah.
because
She was. She'd be every night. She was doing the. She'd be sending pictures and videos like, look what just happened, or this just happened. I'm like, oh my god. I never personally got to go, which I'm really upset about. I really wanted to go. I mean, I still can. It's not like I'm
yeah.
far, but while she was there, yeah, she loved it. And
Wow. I'm
but
like
she
10 hours
started.
away from it.
Yeah, she did start to get nervous though towards the end, because
Mhm.
she did feel like she was possibly bringing some sort of negative energies and stuff home. A lot of
Yeah.
odd things started happening at her house, she told me, and that was, I think, one of the reasons she kind of stepped away from it, because yeah, it was starting to freak her out. She swore one night that she saw something like in her backseat of her car when she was driving home from the place, and it really spooked her. Yeah.
There's a
Yeah,
lot
that's
of
a fun little
people that
fact. Yeah.
no, I mean, and that's the other thing, is that sometimes when you're going to like these type of locations, especially if you work there, there are people who kind of feel that, like you said, like you're kind of bringing something back with you, or because something becomes attached to you in a sense that it's comfortable with you, that it's like, well, I'm just going to leave here and go with you. And I do feel that is possible, because I will say, like, when I talked about the Amityville apartment that I lived in, the one thing that I forgot to say about it was that I was really big into, my friends and I called it grave hopping. Like we would go to the local cemetery and like just walk around. And I mean, we wouldn't mess with stuff. Like we did not, I would disrespect any graves or anything such as that. But we would just kind of like take in our history of a local cemetery. um, and all that kind of stuff. And it's very possible that what happened at that apartment in my college years was something that I had brought back with me. So I definitely think that those things, exist. But yeah, kind of getting back over here to the Full of Paranormal, it's like, it does take up a lot of time. But the other thing is that when it comes to anyone, because creating a podcast in today's day and age, everyone and their neighbor and their mother has a podcast, which is great. I think there's so much podcasts are kind of like streaming services. Like there's just so many to choose from, and there's so many ways for all of us to be entertained. But when it comes to the paranormal community itself, it's still a rather small community. And I think in order to, because we all want to stand out, right? We all, in a sense, like you said with the grind, you want everyone to take what you're doing and in a sense like respect it and appreciate it, because we are putting our time, our effort, our love, our hate, our fear, like all of these emotions into what we are producing. And I remember that I actually sat down with Mary Jo Chudley again. I talked to her about this podcast, and I was like, I really want to stand out. And she had said, Colin, like this idea of debating with a skeptic, and you're such a believer. She was like, no one's doing that. No one. She was like, you have a very unique idea, and how you produce it and what you do with it is what's going to make it where it go, what's going to happen with it. And I will say, like, I would not be where we are if it wasn't for the work that Jess puts in, that Bree puts in. It wouldn't be where it's at today. Like I look at the numbers, because like we both use the same program, and I am constantly engaged in my recording program, the Riverside program, to see how many people listen today. What did they listen on? I'm addicted.
Yeah,
It's like a
it's
drug.
amazing to watch something that you've put all of your time, effort, your love, your passion into, to see it grow, to see other people get enjoyment out of it. It's such a good feeling. And I said the same exact thing to you before we started recording, that your guys is, I don't want to say gimmick, but like your thing that makes you, the thing that makes you stand out. We all
It's a
need
gimmick.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah. The believer and the skeptic. I that was the first thing I said to you. It's brilliant. No, I don't know anyone that's doing it, especially in the podcasting world.
Yeah. And that's, I looking at all of the, for us releasing a first episode in January of this year, and looking at the numbers and how many listens that we have gotten, I think to like any one person, they're gonna be like, well, that doesn't seem like a lot. But for us, for people who have literally just started at the beginning of 2026, and here we are in May, it's huge, right?
Yeah.
Like those numbers for me are just, and they keep growing, which is the good part, right? It's not like we're at a standstill. We haven't hit a plateau or anything such as that. Like every day they get higher and higher and higher. And it's really amazing to me, the support that we get from, like people like yourself and people kind of all over the world. I will say, I didn't know why. Actually, Bree's husband, Jake, confirmed this. We were getting a lot of listens in like Japan and Guatemala and India.
Really?
And then, yeah. And
That's
Jake,
interesting.
yeah. And we didn't know why. And then Jake had said it's for like AI purposes. Apparently AI likes our voices. And so you have other countries listening to your work to kind of copy your voice and use it in their AI that they might put
That's
out.
pretty crazy. You're going to be parts of podcasts you never even heard of.
And I was like, you know what? I mean, like, I'm not mad at it, right? Like, I'm okay with it. I mean, it's sad that I'm not getting paid for it, but at the same time, I'm like, whatever, it's fine. I don't plan on traveling to those countries anytime soon. So, but the dream, the goal, and it's literally something Jess and I talk about almost every day, is that, we want to be able to go to like these podcast cons and be on panels and talk to people and,
oh yeah, that's
just
my dream, bro.
Dream. Yeah. It's just show the importance of not only the podcast, but just to show that. And I tell Jess this all the time, having a chronic illness. I was like, Jess, there might be some little girl out there who has a chronic illness such as yourself or something similar to what you have. And she thinks, I can't do anything. But seeing you do what you do is going to inspire someone else.
Yeah, that's
And
beautiful.
yeah, that's the goal for me. Like, I love inspiring people. I like people to know that depression and death and all, it's not the end, right?
Yeah.
It's never going to be the end for anything. I know a lot of people were, when my grandmother had passed last year, I had taken care of her for 10 years.
Wow. Yeah, I'm sorry about that, man.
Oh, it's okay. It's and I always tell people like it's a-okay because it was her time, right? She was 91 years old. It was time, and I was relieved when it did finally happen because it was like I was completely okay. She was okay with it. Like every year on Graham's birthday, she would always say, "Well, I don't think I'd make another year." And she'd ask me, she's like, "Is it okay to go yet?" And I'm like, "You go whenever you want to, Grams." Right?
At least she had a good humor.
Yeah, we always and that's my Grams taught me to live life with a good sense of humor. And but I think the worst part of it wasn't her passing. It was coming home to a house where she was on oxygen for 24/7, so I always had the oxygen machine going. Her television was always turned up to full volume because she was deaf.
Yeah.
So to not like
Yeah,
hear those sounds.
I know. As soon as you said that, I already knew. Yeah.
Yeah,
I've been there.
full volume television at all
Yeah.
times. So it's like, to not hear that was the depressing part for me. To kind of sit in the silence, not realizing the silence would be the hardest part was like, wow. But at the end of it all, I I got up. I kind of, when it comes to depression, I think the one thing that people don't tell you is that you can have all the support from everyone asking if you're okay all you want. The only person who can pull you out of that depression is yourself. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
It's even you bringing this up right now. Yeah. About maybe 2 months ago, I had come out of one of the worst depressions of my whole life. It was a couple months of just agony, like between because I have anxiety too, and I've had anxiety, most of my life, and had occasional depressions, and doctors, they were recommended, this med, that med, all sorts of stuff for a long time. And I just kept saying, no, I'm going to deal with this on my own. I'm going to do this on my own. And finally it got me good early this year. Yeah, totally put me down for the count. I was having panic attacks so bad. I would go to the hospital thinking I was having a heart attack. Like my chest like felt like someone was just squeezing, my chest like super tight, anxious. Yeah, every day, like I was having breakdowns at work. Like that was when I realized like how bad it's gotten,
And look where you are now.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's
but
it's so weird. And also, I want everyone out there listening to know, like you just talked about how you're in a band and yet you still suffer from anxiety. And like what people don't realize is that, like, for me, it's like, look, I have a bachelor's degree in music and theater. I've done stand-up comedy for years. I've performed in front of people for years, but I still have like social anxiety.
oh
Right?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
before I would do a stand-up set, when you're like kind of waiting for yourself to go on, people are wanting to talk to you, and I'm like, please don't talk to me yet.
Yeah,
Like,
I
just
like feel like
don't
you're
go
gonna throw
away.
up. All week long leading up to this show, because our show is we have a show this Saturday, the 23rd, and yeah, for the past 2 weeks I've been anxious, like making myself sick over it. It's just,
Yeah,
I have
and
terrible
it's
social
so
anxiety.
funny.
Yeah.
I even for me, it's kind of like I would always kind of tell people I'm like, talk to me after my set, because like once all my dirty laundry is out, I'm okay to talk to anyone, right? Like I don't care. I've already embarrassed myself by going up there, so then my anxiety kind of melts away, and I'm okay with talking to everyone. But the one thing, and this is something that like Jess and Bree and I do before we record, is that and I do this all the time, is that we tell ourselves, and maybe you'll even bring this to your band, is that before you do anything, you know what you're gonna do? You're gonna put your whole dick in it. That is what we tell each other. We put your whole dick in it.
Yeah, the whole thing.
The whole thing. And that is what we do before we record. And we make sure that at the end, we're like, you know what, Jess, you put your whole fucking dick in it. Congratulations. That was amazing.
That's it, dude. That's what you gotta do.
You gotta give, yeah, you gotta put it in there. And oh, good Lord, my mom's dog's barking.
Yeah, I can hear him in the background.
Oh, good Lord. Oh, well, sorry, folks. That's When you get a little Chihuahua dog who barks at blowing leaves, that is what
Yeah,
you get.
there you go. He's protecting the house.
He'll sit in here with me and not bark. But you know, I think that, you know, we all have to give everyone props where props are due, and that's just kind of what it's all about, especially in this chaotic world of podcasting and in this community. I think this community is so important to what we do, to what people do, because I just don't. How do I put it? You know, I feel that a lot of people like. Oh my lord, what is wrong with you? Come here. I'm so sorry.
He wants to come on the show.
You know, I feel like a lot of people don't. They go into the idea of the paranormal almost not knowing what they're getting themselves into.
Yeah.
And I tell people, I'm like, look, because I done urban exploring? Have I been to locations that you're technically not supposed to be on the property? Absolutely. Do I do it anymore? No, because I'm old and my body gives out. So I don't do those things
Fair.
anymore. But I always tell people, I'm like, look, like if you want to go urban exploring, or you want to, maybe go into a cemetery at night when you're not supposed to, just be careful. Like don't go out there and get yourself arrested for the paranormal community. It's not worth it. I promise you.
Just for people to call it AI or something.
Exactly. But I will say just a tip for everyone out there. If you're listening to this and you're like, 18, 19 years old, and you're like, what? Take your cell phone, and if a cop comes, throw it. And that way you can tell the cop, hey, I was here earlier in the day and I lost my cell phone. I can't find it. And that's what you're doing
genius.
there. I know.
That is genius.
Yeah. Because then I guarantee you the cop is going to say, what's the phone number? I'll call it. And they will. And that way, if you throw the phone and it's somewhere, it's not on your person. So I have tons of experience doing that. We'd always pick a designated person to be the cell phone thrower. We're like, who's throwing their cell phone? Just in case.
It reminds me of that scene from Tommy Boy when they're drinking and driving and they pull over. Yeah. We get bees everywhere. Officers are like, I'm allergic to bees. We'll come back later and check on you.
Yeah.
Oh, man. But I did want to ask, in your years of doing urban exploration and even being the tour guide at the movie theater, were there any other experiences like as notable as your time in college? Anything else that really stuck with you?
Yeah, so there, gosh, I will say at the Clifton, I remember I had an experience. We had, and I was actually just working. We had a meeting like that morning, and I had gone in early because as a theater person, and anyone will know, I think anyone, even yourself playing in a band, like you will always know that if it's that old saying of if you're on time, you're late.
Yep.
But if you're early, you're on time. So I'm anywhere between 30 to 15 minutes early for anything that I do.
Totally respect that, because I'm the same way. Totally respect that. I can't stand when people are late.
I know it really grinds my gear when someone's late. I'm just like, why? But so I was there early, and I remember that Ariel had asked the night before to mop the concession floor. And I said, well, I didn't get the chance to do it. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to do it now while I'm waiting for everyone to get here. And I didn't have any lights on, but it was like open. There are like windows and glass doors and all that kind of stuff. So we had enough like kind of natural light coming in, and I had earbuds in, and I'm mopping the floor, and I start hearing banging, like just banging loud. And I take out my earbud and it stopped. And I was like, did I imagine that? Was that me? I put the earbud back in. I continue mopping. I start hearing banging all over again. And I didn't know what was going on. And I end up turning around. And so, when you're in the theater itself, in the concessions lobby, so down one hallway is your 3 theaters. And then down another hallway, there is your other 2 theaters. Now, in the other connecting hallway that goes to your theaters 4 and 5, it's a different part of the building. So there's a door a red door that we would close and lock. And that is because, hypothetically speaking, if anyone breaks in from the alleyway, that is connected to theaters 4 and 5, they can't get into the rest of the theater.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So I remember that I took out the earbud, the banging has stopped. I was like, okay. And I felt like I was being watched. So I turn around, and standing against this red door that is closed is this black shape. Just standing there. And I could see the cane, the hat, the whole nine. I knew exactly who it was. It's been so long since I've been there, but there was a gentleman back in like the 30s and 40s who used to work there, and he ended up becoming one of the managers. And gosh, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but his presence was reported. And there was also reports of him being involved in kind of like I believe it was the Irish mafia, because he was all the way from Ireland originally, and he was an immigrant. And there were reports that, that we found in old papers and stuff like that, that he would definitely put you in cement shoes if you crossed him.
Wow.
So, and like there was an old photo we found of him and his wife Pearl, and he had a cane and a suit and like a bowler hat. And I knew that was him. As soon as I saw this black shape standing against the door, I was like, I knew exactly who it was. And it was weird because at that time I was working. I was like an employee. And I kind of felt like he was making sure I was doing a good job. Like I was really mopping that floor the way it should be mopped. Yeah. And I thought maybe he was banging because I wasn't doing that great of a job. Like I was just kind of half-assing it, a little bit.
Yeah. It's like and drill sergeant. Yeah.
Yeah. That was really weird. I will say probably the most unnerving experience, because I think that when I was a tour guide there, I got so used to a lot of the antics that the ghosts would kind of do. And I was very much used to it. So I didn't really get freaked out too much by it. But I remember one time I was giving a tour, and we came out of Theater 1. And we were heading over to the other side to go to theaters 4 and 5, but we crossed into the lobby, and you could see into the ticket booth. And standing in the ticket booth on a phone with his hat brimmed up is my ex-boyfriend.
Okay.
And we had been broken up for a number of years, and he had not worked there for like 3 years. He lived in New York. I can't tell you why I saw something impersonating him there. I just remember that like I said, I was walking, I had equipment in my hands, and I look up and I see him standing there, and I stop. And one of my good friends, Robbie, who was on tour, stops behind me, and he goes, "Are you okay?" And I said, "I just saw Evan." And he was like, "What?" And so Evan used to work there at the theater prior to me being there. The reason why I got the job was because him and I broke up. He moved back to New York and he quit. So Ariel was like, "Would you like the position that he had?" And I was like, "Sure, that's fine." It's, so that's how I got to working there. Evan and I had been broken up for years at this point. I hadn't thought of him. We were not in a state of any communication whatsoever. I wasn't thinking of him. I wasn't broken up over him. So why something manifested as him at the ticket booth was beyond me, but I know that it freaked me out.
That's scary. I mean,
yeah,
we always think about how scary it would be to see the dark figures, the scary, but you never think about how scary it is to see someone who is not really there.
Yeah. Ariel had said we had a girl there who was part of our team, Kirsten. If she heard me call her Kirsten, she'd punch me. So Kirsten was part of our team, and I felt like the ghosts there at the Clifton really loved to pick on Kirsten because she's a screamer type. She gets spooked very easily. And there was one time that Ariel told me Ariel saw Kirsten go down a hallway, and Ariel loved to spook Kirsten out. We weren't even on tour. We were literally just working a day shift, and Ariel, so she saw Kirsten go down a hallway, and she waited around a corner by the ladies' bathroom for Kirsten to come back down the hallway so that way she could spook her. And then behind her, Kirsten walks out of the bathroom. And Ariel's like, I just saw you walk down the hallway. Yeah, so we literally, I think for about a year, we had a case of doppelgangers.
That is so scary.
And it was scary. I remember there was one time Ariel and I were outside the theater. It was late at night. We were closing up, and once you walk into the theater, immediately to your left is the ticket booth. And Ariel and I were going in. I held the door open for her, and then I got a text message. So then I stepped back outside to respond to the text. I go inside probably about 5 to 10 minutes later, and Ariel's at the ticket booth directly to my left. And she looks at me and she goes, "You already came in." I said, "No, I didn't." She goes, "Yes, you did." I said, "Ariel, I held the door open for you, but I didn't walk in behind you. I actually got a message and I sat out here and responded to it for, like 10 minutes. She was like, "No." She was like, "Colin, like I walked in, went to the ticket booth directly here to the left, looked at you." And she was like, "Colin, you looked at me and walked towards concessions. I watched you walk towards concessions." I said, "Ariel, I stayed outside." I had another boy, a part of our team named Dakota. He had said that he was looking for Kirsten, and he saw her open the door that goes into theater 1, and she stuck her hand out and kind of waved one of those come here moments. And he said it looked really weird. And then she came out of another hallway seconds later as the door was closing.
Oh my God. You guys legitimately have doppelgangers in there.
It was such a bizarre. I mean, like
one
it happened
time
so
with one
frequently.
person, it would have been like, okay, maybe they're just seeing something. But you have all these corroborated, all these different people seeing all different other people who aren't really there. That's amazing.
It was it was very bizarre, but like definitely, like you had said, we kind of get used to, seeing the shadows or hearing the bumps or anything such as that. But to see someone that especially someone cannot be there, is the scariest part.
Yeah. Yeah. Just like the thing you said mimicked your friend in college. That's to me, it doesn't get scarier than that,
I think it's once again, it's also, it's that idea of like the recognition, it's that something knows you.
Yeah.
I think that as a tour guide in these haunted locations, you spend so much time getting to know, the ghosts and the apparitions. So that way, when you talk to people about them, you can be as accurate as possible. I never thought that they were also spending time getting to know us.
Yeah, that's the scary part when you start to understand their intelligence. It's easy to think like, all this place is haunted. It's, just memories of souls or however you want to explain it to yourself. But when you start to realize that some of these things are so smart that as you spend time looking and investigating into them, they're learning how to scare you the worst.
Yeah, it's that idea of, when you look into the void is looking back.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's an intelligent haunting at that point. And intelligent hauntings are terrifying, because like you said, it's something that is literally having knowledge to know you, and it is legit looking for ways to possibly scare you.
Yeah.
But I mean, technically, they don't have anything else better to do if you look at it.
True. Yeah, that's kind of their job, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, did you have anything else you wanted to talk about, or?
I mean, just like I said, just to kind of plug the full of Paranormal BS there. You guys can find us on all social media. And then we are also on YouTube, Apple, Spotify. You can listen to our first 4 episodes there. We have a 5th episode releasing here on June 1st. And once again, if you pay attention to our socials, you can kind of find out starting on, I'm going to look up the date here. Starting on the 25th, you can find out, we'll post our first photo of our new location on all our socials. So our Instas, our Facebooks, our TikToks, it'll all be there. And you guys can find us full of Paranormal BS. And
all right.
Yeah, let us know.
I got to ask, have you ever convinced her to believe something.
That is
Have you ever
always my
won?
goal.
Have you ever won?
That is always my goal. And what I will say is that she has now kind of come across the idea of going, that's weird. That's a little weird.
That's a start.
You know,
That's a start.
Yeah, that's a start. You know, and that's what I always tell her. I was like, that is my goal is to finally like bring her over to my side. But what she gives me so far is like, okay, I can't really explain that. That's kind of weird. So yeah, I mean, actually, so for our new location, which obviously I won't disclose, I was talking to someone who happened to be there a couple of weeks ago, and we were having a conversation with this group that happened to be there, and they sent us some pictures. And in one photo, which we actually will post on our social media after the episode is released, because we have their permission to do so, there is a shape behind this girl, and the girl told us that there was no one behind her, and there is very clearly a shape. And Jess, she goes, look, I don't know if it's a ghost, but I can see the shape. I don't, there are probably 100 different reasons as to what it could be, but I can definitely see that there's something there. I said, okay, that's good. That's good enough. I'll take it.
That's fair. Yeah. That's again, it's a start.
Yeah.
It's baby steps.
Yeah, we're
baby
starting.
steps. Yeah. That's awesome. We got, you know what we got to do at some point? We got to totally, with all four of us, we got to do a special crossover episode with 2 believers and 2 skeptics and go all out in the research. And
I'm down.
That would be great. We'll get both of our other
I would
hosts
love that.
on. That would be fun.
I love that. Yeah, and you said that your co-host is also like kind of very skeptical, correct?
Yeah,
I love it.
and I'm in the same boat as you, where I do huge deep dives into everything that I'm going to be talking about. So I think we got this.
I would love that. Yeah, I will definitely bring that up. I do know that right now, like the rest of our season is planned, and we are already looking to do new stuff for our next season already. So I will definitely put that on the list because I think that would be amazing.
Well, boom! There's your season premiere right there. Season 2.
All right, I like
Come
it.
on,
I like
2
it.
versus 2. That'd be great.
I'm down.
Oh, that'd be fun. But yeah. Anyways, so definitely go check out Colin's podcast. Follow them. Listen, their podcast is amazing. I've been checking it out. And thank you again so much for coming on. This was an amazing conversation.
Thank you.
And yeah, I hope everybody had fun. And as always, you were listening to the Phantom Frequency podcast. I am Steve, and this is Colin, and we will catch you guys next time.
Bye, everyone.